All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. It is day 30, episode 31, 40 days of 4VKM. And do you like my mask here? You know, shout out Jennifer Mack. And that's who this video is about today. My message to Jennifer Mack and Juan O SAVIN, we'll add him in because the message was for him too. This episode was, came together really just, I was driving in the car, I was heading off somewhere for work, I think heading towards Orlando, and I was just inspired to send Jennifer Mack a message, right? And I recorded this one take on my phone in the car, and I said, I'm going to make a video out of this, and that's exactly what happened, right? So at the time, Jennifer had just put out a video about these wrist bumps, which we'll talk about. And she was preparing to do an interview with Space Shot 76. And, both of those guys had been in a 4VKM video, the self-destruction of the Ultimate Lone Warrior that released on 7/17/2020. Coincidentally, they're both in there as far as people who had been fighting for the truth in terms of certain things, right? So, this was kind of just a message for her. A message of good luck, if you want to say, as, she was one of the defenders of the JFK Jr. Truth Movement, we'll call it. So how's the video start? Video starts off with Vince McMahon on the phone, Trump on the phone, right? I'm calling in, right? So you hear the ringing in the background. These are all WWE scenes. Trump's backstage at WrestleMania 23. And he's complaining about Vince. Vince doesn't even get him any sandwiches here. He's starving. So just a funny little thing there, those guys on the phone. I mentioned, I throw in there too, when I say Junior, and I'm talking about Jennifer going on Space Shop, we're telling her, we hope you hit a home run, Jennifer. Hit a home run on the Space Shot show. Making her case, laying out her case on why she thinks JFK Jr. is alive. And as I'm saying, hit a home run, reminding people that just a couple days before Junior disappeared, Junior won the home run derby in Boston. Ken Griffey Jr., that is. So, just showing that little connection right there. And then we talk about blackpilling, right? Blackpilling is a good word. And what's the definition of blackpilling? I showed in the video there, and I'm saying, hey, there's a lot of blackpilling going on, right? A lot of blackpilling going on, because if you think about it, for the most part, the people within the JFK Jr. is alive movement, they're patriots, right? They're Q people. They are, they love their country. They love Trump. They have all the same principles as every other Anon, right? But however, there's the people who don't believe in JFK Jr. who just find it in their heart where they have to just black pill the hell out of people and throw cold water and throw insults and try to be gatekeepers of truth and instead of letting people think for themselves and show information. So it's very interesting when I see those type of people come out. It's like, okay, well, you guys were wrong about Pence. They loved Pence, most of them, right? They've been wrong about a lot of things. So, and we've been wrong about a lot of things too. Not to say that we've had a perfect record, but at the end of the day, we all have a common cause, right? And that's the definition of blackpilling. Somebody who lowers morale to people who share a common cause. We all have the same cause at the end of the day, right? It's the Great Awakening. We want the Great Awakening to happen. We want the masses to wake up. And, we all have our own way of doing it. My way is by showing you guys how this has all been shown in WWE storylines for years and years and years, which every time I see that, it gives me more confidence that there is a plan, that there is something going on behind the scenes, because it's been embedded in WWE TV for years and years and years. And it's been embedded in other stuff as well. It's just, I just happen to only watch wrestling, so that's how I noticed it, right? So, screw you, black pillars. You know who you are. Wait a minute. So, so I'm talking to, those black pillars, they get so upset when you talk about JFK Jr., but who else gets upset? The left gets upset, right? You have Stephen Colbert always making fun of it, right? The Young Turks get very angry about it. You have just Democrats everywhere say, how dare you say JFK Jr. is alive and he's working with Trump and da-da-da-da. And I will remind these people who are on the left that JFK Jr. was a Democrat, right? So why wouldn't you want him to be alive, right? I mean, he's one of yours. I mean, it doesn't make sense to me. Why would you be upset if somebody was not dead, right? I mean, be an optimist for once. Why don't you be an optimist for once, right? Some people say, well, I'm a realist, right? Well, I'd rather be an optimist at the end of the day. I'm an optimist and I'm a realist at the same time. So you can be too. Now, what I thought was very interesting, everybody remembers the letter. I've shown the letter about 1 million times that got declassified by the FBI. And some people just discredit it and say, oh, well, JFK Jr. didn't write that letter, right? Even though it's signed by him and whatnot. But it's the one that calls Joe Biden a traitor. And why is this relevant? So the date on that letter was 8/26/1994. Now, all these years later, what day was the Afghanistan withdrawal where I believe we lost 12 U.S. troops in Kabul? It was on 8/26/21. So what do we have there? 27 year delta, a JFK delta, I think. Yeah, I might be off. Might be 37. Sorry, my math's not good right now. But same day, 8/26/94, 8/26/21. You had the Afghanistan withdrawal, right, where Joe Biden absolutely butchered that thing, or the Biden administration, whatever you want to call it, left all the equipment there, just, totally handled it wrong. Now, some people could say we had to get out of Afghanistan, right? And this is where it gets interesting, where you hear about Trump say, like, it had to be Biden for all this bad stuff to happen, right? Because imagine if Trump pulled out of Afghanistan and something similar happened, I think he would have handled it way better. But it is kind of funny that all the bad stuff that has to happen, almost like all the Band-Aids that need to get ripped off, they're all happening under the Biden administration, right? And it's kind of setting Trump up to be a hero when he comes back. And he will come back, so it's just a matter of how and when. But he's coming. Hold on, I'm coming. That's his song that he plays, right? So another thing that really early on when I learned this had me into the whole JFK Jr. thing, what I thought was very interesting, Kellyanne Conway. Kellyanne Conway was a contributor to George Magazine. I thought that was interesting. I said, wow, what are the odds of that? Kellyanne worked with George, who was junior, back years ago, and then she was Trump's campaign manager, first female campaign manager to win a presidential election, I believe, in 2016, and then she was a staple of the Trump administration for all those years. She has that jerk husband, or had that jerk husband, George Conway. Not a fan of his. Not a fan of his association with the Lincoln Project. They're a bunch of stiffs. But, you had that connection again. Kellyanne George, JFK Jr., Kellyanne Trump. What are the odds of that, right? So, in terms of the people who have been fighting for the JFK Jr. truth as well, speaking of Kellyanne, you have Kellyanne Hub News, who's made multiple videos putting kind of her clues and her perspective together. And you might not know this, but years ago, probably, 2018, somewhere around that time, as I was first getting started in the community, I don't think I even started for VKM yet, I actually made Kellyanne's watermark. That's on the bottom of her videos, bottom right corner there. So it was very entry level. I think I made it in PowerPoint. I'm not a graphic designer, but she needed a watermark, I saw, and I said, let me give it a try, right? And I got it done for her. So shout out to Kellyanne. We don't agree on everything, right? But again, that goes back to that blackpilling. We might not agree on everything, but we don't have to tear each other down like some people do within the community. We just have different points of view on things, and that's fine, right? You don't have to tear somebody down that you have a different opinion from. With the media. So, you have, who else? Big fan. And this person just returned to X. American Prophet, right? probably one of the biggest inspirations for me creating 4VKM was the American Prophet. Those videos, he had those badass soundtracks to it. He used a lot of the Batman theme music. I took a lot of stuff from his videos, incorporated it into my work. You know, really, the real difference between us is that I just put in wrestling clips, right? But, you know, big inspiration to me. He got booted off YouTube, unfortunately. Went to Rumble, got booted off Twitter. Now he's back though on X, so give him a follow, American Prophet. You guys will find him. And then, you know, again, one of the biggest inspirations to me doing what I ended up doing with 4VKM was the Jennifer Mack, right? And if you saw The Called, which is a very good film, highly recommend it. What's interesting is in the ending credits there's a shout out to Mr. and Mrs. Mack, which I don't know who that is, right? It sounds like Jennifer's parents or something like that. But when I hear Mr. and Mrs. Mack, I think of McMahon, right? Mr. and Mrs. McMahon, Linda and Vince. I'm not saying that's her parents, right? But it's just what I think about. What are the odds that Mack, McMahon, you know, they called Vince Vinnie Mac, they called Shane O'Mac. And then we have Jennifer Mack, right? And then you have me kind of telling a similar story, but with wrestling involved, right? So, again, just a coincidence. I'm not saying they're all related or anything like that. Just saying it's very, very cool. And she did a lot of stuff with, beforehand, with health and eating right. Did a lot of vegan recipes, all stuff like that. And I show you guys a clip there of Daniel Bryan. Daniel Bryan was a vegan WWE champion. And when he won the WWE Championship, he actually converted it into a hemp belt, right? An all-natural championship belt with, you know, all responsible sourcing of the materials and everything like that. So he was the vegan representation of the WWE, which was good. But what was the reason that inspired me to make this video that she did? Or, you know, follow up on the video that she did? It's this video that she did about with the wrist bump, right? And I'll try to link that in the description so you guys can see that yourself as well. But it's a picture of somebody that looks like JFK Jr. body, right? And then somebody that looks like Carolyn next to each other. And where are they standing in front of? The Georgia Guidestones, right? So the Georgia Guidestones, we know what happened to them. They got blown up on 7/6/2022, and I didn't even mention that in this video. This video came out on 8/19/2022, so it came out a couple weeks after the Georgia Guidestones blew up, which I thought was interesting because that was after the wrist bump video. So you have Georgia Guidestones no more, which is a good thing in my opinion because they weren't that great to begin with, right? But the photo that she compares, and what are they doing? Those two people that are standing in front of the Georgia Guidestones, they're wearing the mask, right? Which you can get this on jennifermack.com or thejennifermack.com. Highly recommend. You get a Caroline one too if you order it. So, and I think you get a Vincent Fusca one too. I don't remember. I think I got 3. Yeah. So, so where were we? So the picture, right? So she has this picture of somebody that looks like Junior and Carolyn in front of the Georgia Guidestones. And I had seen this picture before a million times, but I never noticed what she noticed. And it's almost like that somebody pointed out to her because she does a comparison to the last picture that was around of Junior, and it was in a magazine, and he had a bottle of Aleve in his hand, and he was holding it like this. And it said, Aleve, and you can see the same, very similar bump, right? And, you know, people say, oh, everybody has that bump. And then I was looking at myself, and I'm like, no, I don't have that bump. I definitely don't have that bump, right? I looked at a couple other people. Not everybody has the bump, right? So it is something unique. Maybe it is a coincidence, right? But the bumps are practically in the same spot. On both pictures and both individuals, right? Now, what's the other interesting thing? Kim Runner actually pointed this out. So Junior is holding a bottle of Aleve, and the way he's holding it in the sign language formation of Q. So you have Q Aleve all in one photo, the last photo of Junior. Before he went on Aleve, maybe? Before Q went on Aleve? I don't know. it's interesting. It's super interesting, right? And that's why this community is so great, because you're going to have people that find stuff that you're never going to catch, right? Like, I would have never caught that wrist bump. I would have never known to look up, what's the hand gesture for Q, right? Would have never realized it. So that's why the movement is so powerful, because you have people from all around just pulling things out and showing people. So it's good. So, so it's interesting, that this whole wrist bump thing, and I recommend I'll actually put the photos in the video so you guys can see them yourself too. But why did I create 4VKM, right? I really created 4VKM. I've told this story before, is because I had something that I had to get out. I didn't know what it was, essentially. I didn't know, how big it was, I would say, right? But I knew that there was something with WWE and with Trump and with the 17th letter, and I hadn't put my finger on it yet, and I knew it had to do with JFK also. And then I'm seeing Juan O SAVIN came out on the scene, and he is kind of talking all the same stuff, right? A lot of the JFK stuff, a lot of the JFK Jr. stuff. Anytime he gets asked, hey, is JFK Jr. alive? He says how I always close this show, enjoy the show, right? So it gets very, very, very interesting to me. Now, and remember the context of me growing up in Boston. Savin Hill is a place. I used to live down the street from Savin Hill train stop, right? So I used to live right down the street from Savin Hill train stop. I was born between there and the Andrews station, right, at a hospital out there. So Savin, that word was synonymous. And then when I look at the map, the train map, and see it's the stop on the Red Line before the JFK Presidential Library, I'm like, oh, okay, all right, what's going on here, right? So, there's a lot of stuff. I'm going to get really into the Red Line, which we're red today because of this, the Red Line, and some of the history behind there in that area. Now, in the video at this point, I'm showing Juan O SAVIN. He had shown up at this event. I don't remember what event it was, but remember he pulled his car up front, and then he gets out of his car, walks in. He looks totally different than how he looks now, right? He's got like a short black beard. Now he's got a big white beard, right? He looks kind of like somebody that we know, right? Now, the other thing that's very interesting to me at this appearance that he makes, he has the dress, and we'll talk about the dress that Melania wore at the end of the video. But something that caught my eye is that you had Gene Ho there. Gene Ho is the current editor-in-chief of the new rebooted George magazine, right? So you have Gene Ho wearing a WWG1GA, I think I said that right, jersey with the number 17 on it, and he's taking photos of Juan as Juan is making his way to the stage, right? So it's almost like he's documenting it. So you got Juan O SAVIN giving his speech, right? Now let's go back to that Savin Hill area, right? There's a couple wrestling ties into this area, right? There's an area called Dudley Square. And when I see that on the map, I think of the Dudley Boys in WWE, right? They had the finishing move, the 3D, the Dudley Death Drop, right? So you have Dudley's down there. You have another square called Kane Square, and it's spelled exactly like Kane, the Big Red Machine, who's now the guy that runs Knoxville County. President Trump just shouted him out a little while ago, right? So you have these wrestling connections there. You have Dudley Square, you have Kane Square, right? Now let's talk about the Andrew stop. Andrew Square is one of the things too, right? The Andrew train station was named after John Albion Andrew, who was a governor, I believe, of Massachusetts, right? Do you know what his son's name was? This is where it gets weird, right? His son's name was John F. Andrew. JFA. That's kind of weird, right? So you have the Andrew station named after John Albion Andrew. His son is John F. Andrew. You have Fields Corner, which is the stop before Savin's Hill. And what do I always talk about with Fields Corner? Field McConnell. That's really the guy that introduced everybody to Juan O SAVIN. That character, right? Having him on his shows Able Danger early on in the early years, right? So Some people say that, he's a pilot. He did a lot with the flying and whatnot. So maybe he had something to do with the whole plane incident that happened on July 16th, 1999. You have Field's Corner. That's named after a guy, Zachariah Field. Have I figured out the meaning of that yet? No, I haven't. But what I'll tell you is that it's the number 17 bus that goes between Field's Corner and Andrew Square. What are the odds of that, right? So, gotta love that MBTA. Now, this is some cool stuff that somebody on Exit sent me. Paul Steck. Give him a follow if you can. Paul Steck, S-T-E-C. He's from that area, and he saw one of my videos, and he was like, holy shit, bro, you're onto something, because I've noticed that there's some connections with the drops in these train stations as well. And I mean, this one blew my mind, right? He goes, that Red Line used to be part of the Old Colony Railroad. And guess how long the Old Colony Railroad is, right? It's 617 miles long. So 617 miles long, the Old Colony Railroad, right? What do I always talk about? This whole area is the 617 area code. I was born on June 17th, 617, right? In 617 in this whole area. 617 was the date Vince stepped down. 617 was the date that the woman that's accusing Vince right now, her first day at WWE. There's a lot of 617s out there. And what's probably the most famous 617 of all time? It's the Battle of Bunker Hill. That happened on 6/17. I don't know the year, right? But that's where that happened, right? Now, what was near the Battle of Bunker Hill, which is in Charleston, Massachusetts, right? It was the Old North Church. And what did the Old North Church do? That was where Paul Revere told them, hey, 2 by if sea, 1 if by land, right? I think I said that right. And they would hang the lanterns up in the Old North Church to let people know how the British were coming, if they were coming by sea or by land. Now, I always do searches for 4VKM because I want to see who's talking about it, what's being said, what our reach is, whatever the deal is, right? And a couple years ago, I started realizing that all these lanterns were being put for sale, and their model numbers were 4VKM. And the one that caught my mind, which I was like, how is this even a thing, right? I'll put a picture of it, but it is it's the 4VKM lantern, and it looks like the lanterns in the drops from Old North Church, right? And what's the price on it? It's $40. So you have a $40 lantern, 4VKM, and you know what the description of the lantern is? Hyannis. Wow, what the hell is going on here, right? So I'll put a picture of that in here too, but imagine me, 40, what's that have to do with 4VKM? Well, it's the 40-year plan. That's what the first episode was. That's what we're saying. The 4VKM debuted on the 40th anniversary of the WWE, Vince's WWE founding. And where was that founded? Just a hop skipping away from Hyannis, Massachusetts in South Yarmouth, where Vince and Linda founded the company at Cape Cod Coliseum. They signed the paperwork. So that's all the Red Line stuff there, which just blew my mind. I mean, it really just did blow my mind. But it reminded me also of, if you guys remember before the 2020 election, that's when Juan was working on his Kid by the Side of the Road book. And it was about to be released around that time. And he kept saying that there's going to be a very special watermark. And the watermark was going to commemorate the election day and, all this other stuff, right? And I'm like eagerly anticipating this watermark, right? I had ordered my book. I'm waiting for it to come. Remember that didn't come forever, right? And what's the watermark say? The watermark says at the top right, I think on the back, might be on the front, I think it's on the back, it says Savin Hill, Boston, Massachusetts. But there you go, right? So this is a connection nobody has talked about, right? I feel like I was the first person to really bring this out. Like, hey, Juan O Savin Hill. Savin Hill is right next to JFK Presidential Library. Savin Cove is next to the library. Juan O Savin's talking about JFK, all this other stuff, right? And then people like to say, oh, Juan O Savin, he doesn't know what he's talking about. He's a LARP. He's playing everybody. Right? Well, I actually think, personally, maybe I'm wrong by this, I actually think multiple people play Juan O Savin. I don't think it's just one person. I think a couple people play that, and I think a lot of people agree with me on that. Could be wrong. Maybe it is just this Wayne Willett guy, right, that the media likes to talk about. But I think a couple people play him. Now, he gave me credibility before when he was the first one to explain the watch. Remember, the watch was set at 129. Juan O Savin was the only one that mentioned that, right? But this is really what closed it for me. You had Melania on 1/20/2021, who was wearing the dress of, with the cubes on it, the orange cubes. And what are the page markers in Juan's book, Kid by the Side of the Road? It's the same orange cubes. And he was saying that that's basically a signal. It's flag. I forget the phrase for it, right? When you use flags to send signals. And that's what they were doing that day. And it's probably the best Juan proof that's out there. So for all the haters of Juan O Savin, explain that. Was that just a coincidence? Because that book was published way before that dress that Melania wore. And if you remember, Melania got on that plane wearing a different dress. She changed into that dress, and when they landed in West Palm, she walks out wearing that dress that Juan O Savin had a copy of that he was bringing around and doing his speeches and whatnot. So, again, this is my message to Juan O Savin, to Jennifer Mack. What the hell is going on with Savin Hill? Could somebody please explain it, right? We have these beautiful connections here. Field's Corner. Field introduced us to Juan. Savin Hill is the next stop from there. From there, it's the JFK Presidential Library, JFK UMass stop. From there, it is Andrew, named after John Albion Andrew, whose son was JFA, John F. Andrew, right? So it's very, very cool. So check out the episode, Message to Jennifer Mack. And, we'll add Juan O Savin in there too. It's a message to him as well. All those signs at me at WWE shows, 4VKM, that's me trying to get their attention, damn it. So would love to have a conversation with them. Would love to have a conversation with Field McConnell. So Rubber Duck, hook it up. But these guys are definitely have done some great work and a very good job of helping wake people up and move this awakening forward. And look forward to see what the future holds for everybody. But, as we say, check out the video and the link, the original one. Check out the 4VKM podcast channel on YouTube. We're launching that on 2/21/2024, 4VKM podcast, which will conclude the 40 days of 4VKM. And 4VKM.com for all the episodes that you can watch in order. So, as Juan likes to say, and as I like to say, enjoy the show.